Welcome back, everyone, to the MJ SportsCast, a delayed MLB season edition here of the show. This is Mike Tang. I'm with Jerry. Jerry, how you doing today?
Doing good, just a little disappointed, like what you talked about with MLB and missing opening day. So it seems like every single day that doesn't go by is another game that's going to be missed in the regular season. And it seems like the pre-arbitration pool is the biggest blocker at this point. League wants only 30 players to get that pre-arbitration pool money, while the players union wants 150 players. So that's a huge discrepancy. And they met for 16 hours yesterday. Did you hear about that? And they still couldn't make it work. Like, come on.
Yeah, they met until about 1 a.m.
Oh
last
my
night here.
god. Uh-huh.
And another issue that I've been hearing is that the league wants a 14-team playoff, while the union wants more of a 12-team
Yeah.
playoff system here. And I know we talked about it in a previous episode why the union wants wants less teams, because then owners and teams, they'll be less inclined to pay their players to get into the playoffs. So if you push it to a 14-team league,
Mhm.
there that's almost half the league making the playoffs when you think about it
Yeah.
here. So I understand where the union's coming from. It's very difficult, I think the people that hurt the most are like the broadcasters, people who write articles for a living here. Um, those guys are the ones who will be suffering in the beginning of this season.
Well, also the concession people. Like, don't forget the all the people that operate the stadium, right? Like, they've already had a year off because of COVID. Like, or not a year off, but a reduced schedule because of COVID. Last year, fortunately, they had like full season, but not every stadium in the beginning were full. So they probably suffered revenue from that, and salary income from those concession workers. I think those are the people that really take a big hit financially. So hopefully the league can work something out. But yeah, the expansion of playoffs, it's kind of happening across all the sports we're seeing, right? Like the NBA expanded with that, the last two seeds being kind of a tournament to get in. And
Mhm.
we just saw with the NFL, they increased with another playoff team as well. So it seems like that's a trend in trying to generate revenue. And, with the MLB season being so long, I can understand how some teams don't want that. And also, it makes the regular season less meaningful, right? If you have so many postseason teams. So I'm kind of with the team in some ways on this, more so than players. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I lean more towards what the players are favoring here, just because of what I just mentioned in the beginning of the show, how now teams will be less inclined, to give raises, to trade for players mid-season here. If they have a high chance of making the playoffs, what's the incentive of teams to stock up their roster, right, or give raises, to players here? So, I I like the player side. I could see where the owners are coming from too. They want to build that revenue stream in the postseason here. So I think they have a lot of challenges, in the next few days if they really want to stop this strike. So it's going to be very interesting to watch.
So do you think they'll come to an agreement, or are you kind of in my boat where I feel like we're gonna miss more than half the season? I feel like,
I
yeah.
don't think you'll reach half a season there. I'll be surprised if they reach a quarter to a third of the season, but you
Mhm.
can expect maybe 10 to 20 games at least, right? At this point.
Yeah. Well, every day it delays is another game. So in that case, is maybe they might work something out in 2 weeks, is what you're projecting, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. The fact that they met for a long time last night is a good sign
Mhm.
here. And in the grand scheme of things, a few games and missing opening day, it's not that big of a deal, right? If you can get like, I don't know, if you can get maybe 150, 140 games into the season, there you
Mhm.
can still salvage this.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So we'll see. Let's just stay tuned and hopefully hope for the best.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about some NFL stuff or some NBA stuff here?
Yeah, let's
It's the
go
off
NFL.
season for the NFL. Go ahead.
Let's go NFL. I think that will be.
NFL.
I think off-season news is heating up, and NBA is a little depressing with the Warriors right now. So maybe let's start off with some off-season news and go from there.
Yeah, let's talk about it here. Our George Kittle here. He's been kind of rumored on social media, mainly by one guy in on Twitter, Grant Cohn, saying that the 49ers should consider trading George Kittle here. He named a bunch of reasons, about what, 10 reasons or so here. He gave some legitimate stuff that we definitely considered. What are your thoughts about, trading a guy like George Kittle? Because from what I've seen here, George Kittle hasn't really produced like a top two or even like a top tight end. And, he's being paid to score touchdowns, to gather up yards here. And he's mainly being used as a blocker the past year or two. There's also injury concerns with him as well. He hasn't been on the field as much. So what are your thoughts about trading George Kittle this offseason?
I think the risk is what you identified just now, right? It's obviously an injury risk. It's obviously a risk of production from the receiving position. But I think overall, he's a solid player. I think the intangibles are the leadership skills, being able to raise up that locker room, from being able to have the best, tight end option. And there's not a lot of good tight ends out there, right? Like I think Mark Andrews, Kelsey, Pitts, it's probably the top three guys that will be in the mix. But I think Kittle's up there. I think you can make an argument for any of the four tight ends that I named. But after that, I think it's a very steep drop off. And I think with Kyle Shanahan's scheme, having tight ends that can block and be able to catch is going to be crucial, And I think the injury risk is going to be every single player. Like you talk about injury risk, your Debo Samuels is an injury risk, right? Like the way he plays hard, you might lose him. You might lose him midseason, then you're going to be without a number one option unless Ayuk really steps up, So I think to be good in this league, you really need three options, receiving options. And we saw that with the Bengals, right? The Bengals had Tyler Boyd, Higgins, and Chase. A lot of people didn't think they would draft Jamar Chase, but they did because I think you need three solid weapons to get through a season and be very competitive, right? So, I think Kittle's a big part of that 3 seasons. So I'm pro him staying. I do understand the argument though. Like a lot of people think we can probably get like a first round pick out of him, which I think is very optimistic. To trade a tight end for a first round pick. I just don't think that's realistic. So you're looking at maybe a second round pick. At that point, you might as well just keep him. And I think there's also some salary cap hit issues to consider if you do trade him, right? Because I think the team is not gonna, whoever you trade it for is not gonna want to absorb the full contract. So potentially, you might be paying some of that as a joint
Yeah.
thing for this trade. So I know you're kind of for this trade, right? So what are your thoughts on this on the opposing side of you?
No, I'm actually not for the trade or very against it. I can just see the logic behind Grant's article and his reasonings behind it here, but I think Kittle is just way too valuable to be dealt here. And I think with the addition of Trey Lance as a starter, I think Kittle can, start racking up some yards just because I think he'll have a better quarterback behind center for the next few years as well. He didn't really have a lot of opportunities there. There were a lot of overthrows during the regular season. Kittle could have gotten a few more touchdowns too. So I think with Trey Lance being out there, with Kyle hoping to be more confident, opening up the playbook too. And also, you can't really underestimate Kittle's value as a blocker as well. It's something that we don't really see, on TV, but I'm sure people see it, on the game tape and everything as well. So I think keeping Kittle is fine. You really will need him in addition to Debo Samuel because Debo is an injury-prone threat as well, right? and we
Mhm.
can't really count on Ayuk to be like the pure second option on this next season.
Yeah, absolutely agree, right? So I think it's kind of off-season talk really is what it is. I think Grant is trying to stir up a little bit of rumors, some interest, right? Like the fact that we're talking about it, I think was really his
Yeah.
goal. So yeah. So I don't know. I think we're keeping Kittle. There's no way we're gonna lose him.
Yeah, and
So we'll
speaking
see.
of Jimmy Garoppolo here, it looks like he's going to undergo some shoulder surgery that will, keep him out until the summertime. From what I'm hearing, that's not really going to affect his trade value this offseason. But, we heard a lot about the hand or the thumb during the playoffs. We didn't hear too much about the shoulder. So it looks like he's been battling major injuries on that right side of his body there, which it makes it kind of admirable that he even played. To be honest with you, right?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on Jimmy G and what his value will be this offseason?
Yeah, I think the shoulder injury came with the Dallas game in the playoffs. So I remember that was reported, but obviously the team downplayed that injury. So yeah, like what Schefter said, I don't think his trade status will be impacted. He'll probably be traded this month. I think the 16th is officially when teams can start trading. So we'll probably know more before then. The combine actually started. I think today was the first day of the combine, the NFL combine. And what's interesting is that Lynch and the scouting team are going there this time, and Kyle and the coaches aren't. I think last year they went because they were trying to draft a quarterback. So I think Kyle really wanted to handpick a quarterback, so that's why he was there on site. But this year he's not, which I found kind of interesting. So it makes me kind of wonder if we're going to go defense heavy this draft. Probably get some late round secondary guys or early round secondary guys rather, and maybe through
Yeah.
the trade get some decent help there and maybe some offensive linemen. But I don't see any skill positions being picked up. It's kind of a deeper draft for secondary and offensive line this season. So I suspect those are the two we're targeting. And so maybe that's why Kyle's not going. But yeah, I still think Jimmy's going to be traded. I think his cap room hit is too overwhelming. 25 mil when the team actually is minus 4 mil in the cap, even without re signing some guys. So that they definitely need the space this season. I suspect guys like Armstead is probably gonna restructure their contracts, maybe even D Ford
Mhm.
to free up some room to keep this momentum going, right? And having a 25 mil hit is going to be hard. That's why I think all the rumors with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers coming are a little bit far fetched because we don't even have money to pay for Jimmy G's contract, and those guys are probably going to get paid more, right? So I don't think it's reasonable to think that they're coming here.
Yeah, completely agree on all your assessments there. The NFL Combine seems like a bore fest in terms of viewership. What do you
You
think?
want
What
to
do you
see
think?
guys running like as fast as they can and stopping?
But I'm just saying, like, how can we make it a little bit more entertaining, for the viewer, right? And maybe even make it a little bit more fun for the players attending the combine, right? And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they should make it a little bit more competitive, in which maybe you assign, I don't know, some NFL medals, for some of these accomplishments here, just to kind of make it a little bit more fun, make it more of an event,
Would there
as
be a
opposed to it.
monetary value, you think, with those medals? Like first place gets 1 million, second place get 500K, third place get 250K or something like that. Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, you can make it kind of like how the Olympics does it with gold, silver, and bronze, right? And then you
Yeah.
find a way to designate that value after the Olympics is over.
Well, that's what I'm
So,
wondering. I think if you put a cash incentive, then yeah, I think that would happen. Then you'll see guys get really competitive out there. But I think you really have to
yeah,
structure rules around it because people are gonna think it's unfair if you reward the wrong guy first place or whatever. There has to be
true.
certain metrics and stats, especially if it's an event that can't be measured. Like, um, there's potentially something like that's going to get really really tricky, I think. But yeah, I agree with you. That's a really interesting idea. Like being able to mix it up a little bit because, like you said, it's a bore fest right now. I can't even. I think last year I actually watched more than previous years because I wanted to see some of the quarterback play. Some of the up and coming quarterbacks like even Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones or Trey Lance on how they did. Inside the combine. I actually watched a lot of those clips, but it was clips. It wasn't watching the full thing. I can't imagine staying around watching the whole event and being entertained. So I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be something there if they want
Yeah, I
that.
think so. I think they're missing out on entertainment value there, and just kind of dedicating this stuff to the characters and their background, just like how other sports, programs do it too, right? You fall in love with the characters more than anything. So I don't know. I think it's something in the future that they should consider here, but that's
I
something the
mean, other
NFL will
sports
have to
don't really
decide.
do it though, right? You don't even have like other sports like NBA. I think the NBA is really just like what the was it the Rising Stars high school game is what the only thing you see that they evaluate on. Summer League, I guess, is
Mhm.
where you see it. Baseball is what Arizona when they go to. Did they do some type of training camp? I think there, but
Yeah,
yeah,
baseball, they don't really have a competitive thing, in the preseason. It's tough, right? Everyone's just trying to get up to speed for 6 weeks here more than anything.
Yeah, what do you think it is about having a? I think they kind of do it already, which is like the college like all star game or something like that. But what do you think about putting some of the top, draft potentials, doing like kind
Mhm.
of a draft, right? Like having the top coaches draft some of these players and then do one football game, highlighting some of these guys. I know it's kind of an injury risk that could happen, but still, maybe that could add some intrigue. You can see these guys in action with some of the best up and coming rookies.
You mean kind of like how Team LeBron and Team Durant, they are selecting their own all stars within the pool? Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
would be pretty cool. But I don't know if it would have the appeal as at the NBA, right? And if people
that's
will
true.
even watch, right? So yeah, it's certainly great ideas. I hope the other leagues are listening to us and taking some notes.
Well, viewers, what do you guys think? Drop us a comment. What do you guys think? Do you think the combine is interesting, or is it a bore fest like we think it is? Yeah, what
Yeah.
do you
So
think
the
about it?
Niners, their running back coach, Bobby Turner, who's been with the team for quite a while now, has left the coaching staff here. Do you think someone like Frank Gore, for example, will come in and take on that role? Is that something that he wants to do?
I don't know, man. I thought that was a really interesting proposal, though, right? To get Frank Gore back. They I think what was it? Tom Rathman was the former running backs coach during the hardball era, and he was I think a fullback, right, during the '80s Niners era, where the Niners were pretty good back then. And I think passing the torch from a player to another player, maybe Frank Gore is the best option there. I just don't know if he wants to do it. I know he had some prospects of becoming a boxer, but he lost pretty badly in his one boxing match. So maybe he's giving up that dream, and this is a good option for him. But I personally would love to see him in that role, or any former running back come in and play that role. I think it's a underrated position in some ways, right? Because you're actually there's a lot more to think about in a running back position than most people think. A lot of people think you just run here's the ball and run straight, right? But I think there's a lot of seeing the holes and being able to make pro moves that you don't think about, and maybe even learning to catch. Like a guy like Jarek McKinnon was a good catcher. That's why he came to our team, right? And then now you're seeing it with KC, where he's doing pretty good in that position. So maybe Gore or some other running back that had that experience can teach some of the younger guys to do that. So I think that'll make anybody more valuable, you know. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
our running back roster is looking pretty good though. Like if we get Mostert back, you know, Elijah Mitchell, Mostert, Trey Sherman, you know, so it's looking pretty deep there. You know, with Hasty and Jeff Wilson, probably one of those guys will go. You know, I'm thinking
I
Hasty will
think it's
probably get
pretty
cut.
safe to say we're not going to draft a running back this offseason, right?
I don't think so. I mean, we drafted two last season, so I'll be really surprised if they draft another person. But who knows? You know, if there's a good deal out there in the late rounds, I think Shanahan might do it again. Who knows? You know,
Yeah.
I think that's a position that he doesn't mind having depth, right? Because he knows that running backs can get injured pretty easily. So it's good to have a pretty deep bench there.
Yeah. Just because Frank Gore was a great player doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to be a great teacher or a great coach, right? And some people, they rather just play rather than be on the other side, of the field. So I'm not sure what Frank Gore's mind is at here, but I wouldn't be surprised if he just wants to take a step back because I know he also has a son that plays football as well here, and he probably wants to enjoy, watching that too. So,
Frank
yeah,
Ward Jr.
yep. Let's move on to the NBA here. The Warriors, have been scuffling a little bit. They won their first game back from the All-Star break, but they had a huge lead against the Mavericks at home in the fourth quarter here. The Mavs went on a 23-1 run in the fourth. They ended up losing the game by 6 points in the fourth quarter here. Is it time to panic, Jerry? Is it time?
Is it? I mean, I'm asking you. I was panicking a little bit. The fourth quarter was such a disaster, you know. I don't know. I think without Draymond there, without Iguodala there, and also without Clay there, Clay missed that game too, right? They were just a different team. I think Jordan Poole was looking not as great. Steve Kerr didn't call timeouts in the right time. Curry seemed really burnt out and was getting cold down that stretch, you know. So it was not looking good. But I think Draymond and Wiseman practiced on Saturday, so hopefully we get some help and reinforcements. But I think the team at its current state without Clay there really hurts, right? Really suffers without those guys there. So a little bit panicked, but knowing that hey, there might be help coming, it's gonna be good, you know. So we have a
Yeah,
comment from
I
What's
thought.
G real quick. So the drills of the combine are fun, but I don't need to see a lineman running the 40. I absolutely agree. I think that was the part that's super boring. You know? Is see
Mhm.
linemen run the 40. Maybe the top prospects, but then again, top prospects are linemen this year. So okay, go ahead, Mike. Sorry about that. So what
Yeah,
do you
just to
think?
recap again about that Mavs game here. They had Curry sitting on the bench for quite a while during that
Mm,
23-1 run by the Mavs as well. And like you mentioned, no Draymond, no Clay. And then the Warriors really had a tough time making shots, making three-pointers here. They were missing quite a lot of threes, and they gave up quite a few threes to the Mavs too there.
mhm.
So if you're not hitting your shots and then you start giving those shots away on the other end of the court, you're going to start losing some games here. So the Warriors, they really need to find a way to kind of make that corner three. And then they also need to find a way to defend it too, because they were making some pretty huge mistakes, especially Wiggins and some of the guards there. Um,
Mhm.
gosh, it was pretty awful to watch, to be honest with you.
It was demoralizing, right? Like seeing them drop that lead. They gave up a 17-point lead. You know, I think that was why Curry wasn't in there because they had such a long, big lead that you think you wouldn't need Curry. You know, you want to limit his minutes, but then you end up losing the game. That's that's pretty bad, right? So hopefully this trend won't continue. They came out strong after the All Star break, destroying the Blazers. So I thought that was like a pretty solid game. And you thought they were out of the funk then. And early in this game, you thought they were out of the funk too, right? They were like, okay, this team is finally now that All-Star break is done, they can start clicking, start moving down, and then all of a sudden this last game happened, or the last
Yeah.
quarter happened rather, and then now I don't know. I was lost for words after that.
Yeah. So let's kind of refer to a quote by Chris Russo, aka the Mad Dog, here, and he mentioned this on a talk show here. But his quote is saying, "quote I'll say this about Curry: win a championship without Durant. The one you won, Kyrie and Love didn't play, and you almost blew it with Iguodala as MVP. Go out there this year and win one without Durant." What do you think that message really? What do you think it really delivers in terms of Curry's legacy? With the team and what it says about some of his championships won.
Well, I hope that quote lights a fire under Curry, right? And, I mean, we saw in the All Star game, like what happens if you challenge Curry, right? He goes off and lights you up and has a terrific game. But, hopefully this quote will make him have a terrific season, become the league MVP. But I think there's a lot of truth to that because all the
Mm,
championships we've won despite Curry getting kind of cold near the end. I don't remember a game where Curry really saved the day. I think he did well throughout the whole series, but there was times where there was guys that maybe doubled him up, or guys that was affecting his shot early in the series, and then later in the series he figured it out and was able to, go beast mode or human torch mode on the guy. But then you never see him in like a game seven or like a series closing game where he goes off, right? Like a lot of times you see Clay doing that or Durant doing it, and yeah, I mean Iguodala did it for the finals, and that's why he won MVP. So I think there's some truth to what you said, but if anything, I hope this is motivating for him, for Curry to actually get it done. So we'll see.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? That's a pretty bold, big statement, right? From from Mad Dog there. So
yeah. I mean, as fans, we can kind of forget about the past, but if you do remember, Kyrie and Love were out with injuries, so it was basically LeBron and a bunch of role players there, and we also forget. I think LeBron took a 2-1 lead in that series. There
yeah.
was averaging a triple double for this series, and almost single handedly took this series to Game 7 by himself. So there was some truth. And then the next year as well, blowing a 3-1 lead against that same Cavs team,
Yeah.
with Love and Kyrie healthy on there, that doesn't really help Curry's narrative. And also the fact that Curry hasn't won at Finals MVP yet, too. Out of how many tries? He's been to the finals 5 tries, right?
Offense,
He's,
yeah.
yeah, three, and he's won the finals 3 times, and he hasn't sniffed a finals MVP any of those trips. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's missing from Curry's resume here, and he's just going to have to prove all of us wrong, if he wants to be one of the best. Because ESPN, they had a top 10 of all time basketball players, and Curry wasn't even on the list, right? You had LeBron up there, you had Duncan in there as some of their modern players, you have Kobe as number 10, Shaq,
Mm-hmm.
but no Curry. So if he wants to really crack that top 10, top 5, he will probably have to win a couple more championships and maybe a finals MVP to boot.
And then was number one MJ? I'm guessing MJ was number one, right? Of all
Yeah,
time.
Jordan was number 1 there.
Yeah, I think Jordan's one of the few Finals MVP, right? I think almost every time they went, he's won. So it goes to show the different level of him. I know the positions are different too, though. So to be
Hmm.
fair to Curry, that's a hard comparison, right? You can't compare yourself to Jordan, but yeah, I agree with you. He should be a top end of all time player, right? I think he has a chance to do it, and he just needs more championships, like you said, and also ones where he's carrying the team, especially through a playoff run. I just don't see him really carrying the whole team in the playoff run, besides the last one, ironically, right? Because obviously he was the only one there to do that. but they didn't get far. So yeah, I don't know. I think the rest of the season will be
Yeah.
pretty telling. And then in the playoffs too. I'm assuming we're going to make the playoffs, right? It's just going to be what seed we're going to be in. But if Curry starts getting cold in the playoffs, I think the narrative of what Mad Dog said is gonna really play through.
Yeah, I mean, everything's got to be clicking for this team if they want to advance, right? They need Clay back health. Well, they need Clay back at full strength. They need Draymond back, playing at a high level. And I'm thinking they're probably going to need Wiseman at some point in the playoffs as well here, because you really can't count on Wiggins to be that second option there. You saw him disappear, especially against the Mavs this past week here. He just basically didn't do anything during the
Yeah.
fourth quarter as the primary second option. So we need to be at full strength, and hopefully we can be at that level in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, I think Jordan Poole's gone cold lately too. Once Klay Thompson came back, I think he's trying to find his role. I don't think he knows how he stands now with the rest of the team. Now that Klay is there, he's trying to figure it out, right? You can tell he's a young guy trying to figure out where he belongs, and hopefully he gets there sooner than later. Because I think we're gonna need Poole as well. So we'll see.
Yep. All right, let's move to the picks of the week.
All right, the picks of the week. We have one tonight. The Warriors are playing at Minnesota against the T Wolves. Klay Thompson's still out, so it's not an injury, fortunately. I think he's out because he has a cold, non COVID related illness. So he's going to be out, I think, a couple days. So the spread's pretty thin. The spread is the Warriors minus 1.5 now. Um, so what do you think? The over under is 232.5. So who do you have, Mike?
Gosh, every time I look at some of this stuff and I'm going to pick against, my team here, I always think of John Jay from the 49ers Ultimate Report saying he never does these things, because you don't want to pick against your own team. But I'm going to pick against the Warriors here. I just think they're going to have a little bit of a hangover from the last game. Thompson's out here. I'm just not sure what kind of Wiggins will show up, even against his former team. They're playing on the road. No Draymond, no Iguodala. There's what's up, G. T-Wolves on the back-to-back. Take the Warriors -3. That's a good point too here. But gosh, that line at 1.5 is pretty low. So I'm gonna pick the T-Wolves here. I think they're gonna win this game for some reason, but deep inside, really want the Warriors to pull this out. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean the back-to-back is a big point, right? It was -3 when it first opened. It actually moved to -1.5, which means a lot of people are actually taking the T-Wolves, right? If the line moves in favor of the Warriors, that means there's not a lot of action on the Warriors. But man, you know what? I'm sticking with our team. The Warriors -1.5 sounds good to me, and mainly because they rarely lose back-to-back games. And I think they were kind of embarrassed by that fourth quarter. So I think Curry and even Draymond in the locker room probably lit him up, saying, "Hey, what is up with that? Wake up!" All this stuff. So, and T Wolves, I don't think have like as much talent as the Warriors. I know they got better this season, obviously, with some of the draft picks that they acquired, right? So they're obviously better with Cat and all these other guys. So. But yeah, I'm still gonna stick with the Warriors. I know it's a tough road game, right? At -1.5. It's not gonna be like obviously it's gonna be really close. I think that's why the spread's 1.5. Oh, did you pick the over under? I forgot to ask you. Right, the over under is
I didn't
230.
pick over under, but I'm going to pick the under at 232.5 here. What about you?
Think it'll be low scoring. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go with the over. It's always risky with these games where it's over, but something is really suspect about that over under. I think it should be lower. It sounds like a trap a little bit because 232 is pretty high.
Pretty high.
Average game is actually around 220. But for some reason this line stuck pretty firm around 232, 232.5. So I'm gonna go with the over. There must be something we don't know that Vegas knows. So I think the over to me looks more appealing than others. So I'll stick with over here.
All right.
All right, man. So thank you to What's Up G for the comments. On YouTube. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. So I know some people are watching us from Twitch right now and Facebook. So please move on to YouTube. Get us the subscribes and the likes there. I think that'll help us a lot. Yeah. Are you excited? We're back on YouTube.
Yeah, the major platform. So any chance that we can have more viewership and exposure, throughout different platforms, it's always nice.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up this week's episode here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll tune in next week. Take care.